And one might expect, because terrorism is distinguished from other types of violence by its political motives, that counterterrorism studies and counterterrorism policies would have a political edge to them. But you would hope that the intelligence agencies and the law enforcement agencies would be more focused on empirical evidence, sound scientific methodology in determining it. But it seems that these agencies, the FBI, the NYPD, have actually been the ones that have clinged most strongly to these theories, despite ample empirical evidence that they're unsound.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, if you look at the NYPD, for example, and look at their published material on radicalization, it's heavily informed by academics, actually, right? And so one of the issues here is the way in which after 9/11, we've had the creation of so-called terrorism studies departments, funded by, to a large extent, by Department of Homeland Security or other federal government sources, and these are not producing academic material of the kind of scholarly standards that you might expect. They don't stand up compared to other social science work that's done. And so, and there's a kind of revolving door between these academic departments and, national security agencies or law enforcement agencies. And so one of the problems here is that that academia becomes a kind of adjunct of the government national security world, and its independence and potential for objective knowledge gets compromised for that reason, right? And so the best work on terrorism in academia doesn't get done in terrorism studies departments. It gets done in by anthropologists, by sociologists, and by area studies specialists, right? Criminologists, right? And so, but those folks aren't involved in this kind of intimate relationship with government agencies. The academics who are involved in that kind of work see themselves as kind of servicing the needs of law enforcement agencies, right? What are the needs of law enforcement agencies in this area? Law enforcement agencies want a kind of neat, simple formula that will tell them how to direct their surveillance resources, essentially, right? And that's what these very simplistic radicalization models do, albeit in a misguided way, right? At least they have the benefit from a law enforcement point of view of like, here's the one simple formula, that's all you need to know, right? And I think that's a big part of why these things are attractive. So when I was researching the book, I actually asked FBI agents working on counterterrorism, like why do they like this radicalization model that they've absorbed from these kind of terrorism studies scholars, and the answer generally would be, well, we know that these models don't stand up all that well academically, but we need something simple, and like in the absence of some other simple formula, we're going to have to carry on using this one, right?
Which would strike me as a failure of intelligence analysis, that we want something simple that's factual, rather than something that's complex and would form our policies and our practices in a way that actually target people who might be threats.
Absolutely. And I think this is also a wider problem of the general political culture we have in this area, right? Where we've adopted this thinking that we need to do everything possible to prevent the next terrorist attack, right? And everything possible includes taking away people's civil rights, right? And so once you kind of have this sort of zero tolerance approach, a kind of idea that no risk can be tolerated at all, right? So even if there's the minutest chance that someone might be a risk, you have to invest a whole load of resources in going after them, right? Then that creates an environment in which you start to want to broaden out your definition of a threat as wide as possible, right? And that's what these radicalization models do. So you could imagine a situation in which you come up with a much simpler formula, right? That is just narrow, right? That says, go after people who, where you see concrete reasons that they're involved in some actual plot, right? Not based on their ideology, but based on what they say they're going to do, or what their behaviour displays that they're going to do in terms of, are they ordering fertilizer and things like that, right? That's also quite a simple formula, right? But it's not one that's going to fly very well in the national security world, because it requires a dramatic narrowing of who you go after.